Do you know what you got yourself into?
I have no idea.
Oh my God, this is so fun. Oh,
I
this
have
is
no
gonna
idea.
be great. I love it. This the guy who says yes but hasn't consumed a single piece of my content. This is gonna be good. That's how you know you're in the right room. Yeah, give it a sec.
Well, I watched a few clips, but I don't think that counts.
No, for sure it doesn't count.
Yeah.
No, that's all right.
I had intentions of watching some more.
Right.
And then to be honest, it snuck up on me the day.
Yeah.
And it popped up on my calendar. I was like, oh, that's tomorrow.
If it makes you feel any better, that's standard for most people.
Yeah.
I just pop up and I'm there.
For being a podcaster myself, I don't consume as many as
Yeah, I think I consume probably about 5 or 6 people's shows, and that's about it. Like there's 3.5 million podcasts.
So many.
There's so many, no time.
But I really was interested. I did want to listen. I legitimately had it on my to-do list to listen to yours, not just because I was going to go on it.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. We're in the circle. We're in the trust tree with the nest. You can lie to me. It's all right. You can lie to me and all of my listeners. It's fine. But for those who don't know who you are one hell of a bull rider. Yeah. Bronco, kicker. What do you guys call your things where you decide to smash your face off animals' bodies?
That's an okay way to describe me. I would say I am the world's greatest bull rider.
Okay.
And the most humble.
That's right.
But I'm sure all your listeners already know that, even if they are up in Canada.
They're all in America. Why would you assume my listeners are Canadian?
Well, isn't that where you're from?
Yeah. But you know what Canada's like, right?
I try to ignore it.
Yeah. It's probably for the best, considering it's on fire and above you.
Yeah.
It's concerning. But I want to chat with you because what I find interesting about individuals who are willing to take risks and do hard things is they genuinely come from a very interesting past, i.e. severe amounts of trauma in some level, shape, or form, or you just were born into it. So which one was it for you?
I wouldn't see my past as having trauma. I mean, if I described it, some people might think like, oh yeah, there's a few little spots in there, but... But no, I was born into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was born into this lifestyle. My old man it was in my blood.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're from Texas, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I've been here your whole life.
Great granddad. Yeah, like 5, 6 generations.
Oh, so you're like an OG American.
OG Texan.
Oh, like OG
even.
Texan. So
Yeah.
like ran all the people off the plains kind of vibe?
Pretty much.
Okay.
What do you mean, those people?
No, hey, we call them indigenous, y'all call them Indian. We try to just stay.
My great granddad sat in a teepee with Quanah Parker.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's legit.
Yeah, he wrote about it in his book.
Okay, well, I missed that book.
Yeah.
So was your dad
I would give you the book, but there's only like 9 of them in existence. About once a month, I go on Amazon to check and see if one pops up.
No way.
Yeah.
And did he just write about his life?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the extent of it, huh?
Mm-hmm. He was a Texas Ranger.
Oh, wow. So you do really have, Texas is like, it's a whole thing for you. It's not like, I moved to Texas because of COVID.
Right. No,
it's like I'm from LA and now I live in Texas.
Yeah.
It's not that vibe.
Yeah. I was just terrified when Beto was running because like I knew I could just never leave Texas.
Right. Like, yeah. That would be a lot.
You know what I mean? I was like, oh, please. And anyway.
Don't mess it up.
Yeah. Don't mess it up because I got to stay.
Well, I mean, and you've got a ton of land here. I don't know that it would be affordable anywhere else.
Well, as promising as Texas is becoming, I guess I could probably swap for something cheaper, but
yeah, but then it wouldn't be Texas.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be hot as hell for no reason. Like just in the summer, there's no reason for hell on earth. Why does that need to exist?
Man, it does get warm. Warm. It's starting to get there.
As he wears a sweater in 90-degree heat, it gets warm.
I was in an ice bath this morning, so I've been cold all morning. But
okay, fair enough.
It's been it's starting to get warm. It's shaping up to be a milder summer. Last summer was pretty hot. It was. I mean, everybody was freaking out. Acting like it had never happened before. And I was like, you guys must not remember the late 90s. But anyway, anyhow, the point is, yeah, July and August is pretty warm here. Other than that, Texas is the place to be.
No, I would agree. You guys have more guns than humans. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Like every time, isn't the saying like you push over a piece of grass and there'll be a few guns sitting there?
Right. Yeah, because we got them scattered all over the yard.
But I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need them there just for small children to make sure they have access.
Better to have it, not need it,
Oh,
than need it and not
you're
have it.
so great. This is going
That's
to be
just-
fantastic. Oh, you lean in. I love this so hard.
That's it, though. You know, like better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. Period.
Listen,
That's just.
I don't disagree. I
Yeah.
also just don't live in this country. And so
Right.
I don't get the opportunity. But I do have enough people that when I do come down, they go, "You need a gun this week?"
Yeah.
No,
There you go.
I'm solid. Like, "You sure, ma'am? You need a gun this week?"
Yep.
And I'm not going to carry that. I'm going to go to
Because
prison.
I got 2 on my person.
Yeah.
No, I ran around with there was a guy, he walked his daughter down the aisle. He had 3 guns on him. And he used to say, you'll probably find the first one. And you might find the second one, but you ain't gonna find the third one. I don't know what that meant,
Oh.
but I respect it.
I mean, there's only a few places, so it is concerning,
Yeah,
to say the least.
right.
So bring me back to your childhood, because you do come from a very interesting type of people that I don't know that exists as much. It does definitely seem like it's starting to expand, whether it's the rodeo lifestyle, whether it's the culture, whether it's growing your own food, the sustainability, the eating more meat. So you grew up like this. So do you ever want to live a different life? Like, have you ever thought of moving to a city? And I mean, you're a YouTuber. Like, that's not the standard live in the middle of nowhere.
No, one of my best friends growing up and my roommate in college eventually became my lawyer. And he told me as we were getting started with this, the business side of what I do as a YouTuber, 11 years ago, forming companies and whatnot. And he said, man, eventually if you continue to grow, you're going to get to the spot where you need to move to Fort Worth or to College Station or, wherever. And I was like, well, then I'll just stop growing. I guess
like that.
I guess that'll be my plateau moment, because I'm not going to sacrifice, what I have and what's made me this person to, we were talking about it just before we started the podcast. I am kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but it's a catch-22 because I'm also the guy that people would look to for the bull riding type experience, so that same person doesn't live in downtown Austin or Fort Worth. So
No, definitely not downtown Austin.
but yeah, I mean, the way I grew up shaped me into that, and I'd like to recreate and sustain that lifestyle as long as possible.
And how old are you now?
37.
Oh, you're not that old. How's your body feeling?
A little sore.
A little sore.
Yeah.
A little sore. We're getting the look
Yeah,
over
I'm
here
on-
like, don't talk about it.
I mean, there's guys my age that are hurting worse than I am
No, for
in
sure.
this profession. Like I've been blessed. Sincerely, I've had, since I turned 30, I've had half a dozen surgeries, but none of them were, below the waist. So like my knees are good, my ankles are good, my hips. I have arthritis in them, but I haven't had to have surgery on them. So it's been my back and my shoulder and my collarbone that I've had the surgery. So I'd be a typical rodeo cowboy at this age.
So when did you start and how does that work? Can you walk me through that process? Because I am from a really, really tiny town in Ontario where I grew up, where my uncle used to break in horses, and I grew up on we go to the farm, get on horses I couldn't or shouldn't be riding, let them take off and hope not to die kind of vibe. So can you talk to me a little bit about your childhood and what that was like?
Well, there's a lot of people that have the childhood that you're talking about. This whole world right now that's kind of gravitating towards, rodeo and Western way of life. It's full of people that had an uncle or a granddad or a cousin, a friend where they got to ride a horse, and so thanks to the internet, this lifestyle has existed since. Texas has existed, and so the internet Chris Ledoux has a song, You Just Can't See Them From the Road.
Okay.
And basically what he was saying was like, cowboys are out there, you just can't see us from the road. Well, Snapchat now you can see us from the road. And so that's where the the idea for our Netflix show came from How to Be a Cowboy. It branched off of the fact that I was getting 20, 30, 40 DMs a day of how do I get started ranching? How do I get started rodeoing? One of those two questions. And so my intern program is based off of that, and that's what the show was based off of, is basically just giving people an inside look at the industry and then teaching a few interns on how to do it, and we filmed that. The way I grew up, so my dad was, whenever I was born, we lived on what's called the Pitchfork Ranch, and it borders the 4-6s Ranch, which has become notable lately because Taylor Sheridan, who started Yellowstone, recently purchased the 4-6s.
Okay.
And so when I was born, they literally they share a border fence, and very similar ranches. They're run similar, and they cowboy the same way. And so we were at West Camp at the Pitchfork, and when we moved from there, my dad bounced around for a little bit. We landed in Memphis where he was teaching ag, and then there was a 4,000, 5,000 acre ranch next to our place that we managed.
Okay.
And that was where I learned to be a cowboy, was really on this little ranch that, we ran a couple hundred cows, and essentially my dad kind of laid down a foundation for me as a cowboy in little bitty town of Memphis, Texas. And he was not only, a rancher, but he was a rodeo cowboy, and it was all things rough stock. And in rodeo, there's 7, 8 events depending on the rodeo, and it's divided up into 2 ends of the arena: rough stock and timed event. So timed event is where you're sitting on your own horse and you're roping, either team roping, calf roping, steer wrestling, barrel racing. Those are the timed events.
Right.
Well, then you've got your rough stock, which is bareback riding, saddle bronc riding, which is bucking horses. And then you've got your bull riding. And then a fourth activity that happens there is the bull fighter. And a fifth activity is a pickup man.
Okay.
So the bullfighter and the pickup man are hired laborers. And then the other 3 events, bears, broncs, bulls, is a competition, a competitive event. So you've got 5 activities going on the rough stock end of the arena.
Oh, wow.
And, the timed event guys, they're cowboys too. They're both cowboys. There's
the way you say it just said, but they're cowboys too.
They're cowboy. I guess I was good because I just grew up on the rough stock end.
Was that just because that's what Dad taught you?
That's what my dad did. That's all he did. He was when he passed away, he was picking up at a rodeo.
Oh, wow.
He grew up and he worked for a stock contractor in Lubbock named Charlie Thompson, and he would drive the truck. He would pick up. He would compete. He would fight the bulls, drive the truck back. Like he was just, and he knew a lot about timed event stuff. That's just not the end of the arena that I happened to grow up on.
Did you have brothers or sisters?
One brother, one sister.
Did they do the same?
My brother, my sister didn't. When we were little, she would get on a steer just to, to show us how much tougher than we were that she was. But my brother and my brother rode bulls and then later rode broncs. And in college, I did all 3, bears, broncs, and bulls, and rode bulls for a while, and then still compete.
And brought to you by Mindful Meds. You guys have been seeing me take Mindful Meds for a little while now. Mindful Meds is a premium supplement company dedicated to supplying humans with the tools to improve their mental health, clarity, and performance, all while supporting their growth along the way. Whether it's the Immunity Blend, Lion's Mane, Inspire, or Voyage, all of their products are clean, tested, consistent, and they've become a huge help in my life. I found Mindful Meds over a year ago now, and I've never looked back. Go check out their website, mindfulmeds.io, and use the code BRASS at checkout.
When I'm cleared by the doctor.
Which is not right now.
Really enjoy bronc riding too. So bronc riding is probably, I fought bulls in the PRCA. Anyhow, so my brother and I both competed.
No, I think it's interesting knowing that there's 2 options you could have went to. Are there many female bull riders?
No.
Just
I've got
Judith.
one. I've got just the best female bull rider is sitting right over here, Jordan. She works
Okay.
for me. She was in the Netflix show.
Okay.
Most female bull riders, if you watch in the game, like a lot of them might be girls, and guys are guilty of this too. So I'm not just calling out girls, but they're kind of just trying to prove a point.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do have the select individuals that like Jordan that are passionate about it and work at it and work on the fundamentals.
Right.
But there's not that many female bull riders out there, but there's a few of them.
It's just the nature of the sport, I suppose.
It's so dangerous, and as a crowd, it's somebody in the crowd or somebody that might own bull, guys, typically people are just a little more okay with watching a guy get hurt than a girl get hurt. There's just any normal man, like if you look into a crowd, like, all right, somebody's going to get on a bull and they're going to get hurt. They'd rather see it be the guy,
Right.
And so that's what people normally gravitate towards. So they, most of the time, women getting on bulls is discouraged.
Right.
Sometimes it's from a good place. They just don't want to see a girl get hurt. Sometimes it is a little more just like, you'll never be able to do what we do, and so anyhow, those are kind of the schools of thought. And that's what makes some girls say, well, I'll prove you wrong, which is not the right way to start bull riding. Do that with anything but bull riding. Like,
Right.
yes, you could prove him wrong, but like now you're going to do something extremely dangerous to prove a point. And that's not wise, in my opinion.
Well, it's not only not wise, it's if you're doing something for the wrong reasons, it often ends up in a tragic situation. The majority of the time, it's no different than service. It's no different than combat sports. It's no different than getting on an animal that is unpredictable. It's not ideal. And it's just one of those sports that I watched and when I was younger, and I could understand it from if you were breaking in an animal and you're using that animal on the farm, like I could understand it, but I could never understand it from the idea of like, I'm going to sit on it and then I'm going to physically strap myself to it and just pray to God it doesn't smash me in the face or stomp my head in. Just doesn't, I don't understand.
Well, a couple things. Number one, it sounds like almost just like pure chaos.
Yeah.
Whenever you're on the back of an animal. But believe it or not, there's fundamentals that need to be executed for you to make a successful ride.
Okay.
To the uneducated eye, it's hard to see that someone's doing that. They either ride or they don't ride. And that's one thing that rodeo doesn't have in its corner is that you watch an NBA game and you can tell why, the Dallas Mavericks are in the finals or why LeBron is so good or, like everyone can see because they know what it's like to jump.
Right.
But you don't know what it's like to ride a bull. And so when you watch that, it's hard to tell why Dale Brisby is the world's greatest bull rider and why this other guy is just a guy.
Right.
And why was he 90 and this other guy 80?
Right.
And it's because, and then you've got an educated judge who's you've got an objective measurement here that he's saying that, and he's basing it off of a set of fundamentals, but it just takes an educated eye. Now there is still an entertainment value to just whether he rides or not, and you can learn more about the sport. But so it's exciting for people to watch. But the more you know about it, typically the more you're going to enjoy it. Regardless, circling back, there's fundamentals to be implemented whenever you're doing these events.
Okay.
And can you overcome your emotions to execute them? Because as that gate is about to open, like it's all on you, all eyes are on you. And when this bull turns out, he's going to buck every time. Matter of fact, if he doesn't, we're going to give you a re-ride.
Okay.
So you're guaranteed to meet some type of fight. And he might be mean. He may want to hook you after. He might have broken a guy's arm before. He might have bucked the guy. He might have never been ridden. Well, you've got to overcome these things emotionally. Like you're going to be distracted. And if you can overcome those distractions and execute the fundamentals, which in bull riding, as he jumps with his front end, you got to go to the front.
Right.
Well, your intuition is to get away from those horns and get away from that bull that's coming towards you.
Right.
Well, the fundamentals are counterintuitive. So executing these fundamentals is counterintuitive. So who can go against their intuition the best for 8 seconds? And if you let that inner sissy win, you know what I mean? If you let, then you're going to be distracted and you're going to make a mistake and then you're bucked off.
Right.
Well, or you take the fight to the bull and you use you counter those intuitions and you execute the fundamentals and you ride. And there's something about that moment that is just majestic. Like when you can do that as a man, and I'm sure as a woman, I can't speak for them though, but just like when you can meet that fight, not let it distract you, execute the fundamentals, make a qualified ride, and then it's the best of the night. There's not a feeling like it physically on this earth, like in my opinion. And anybody that's heard me talk about this, I was visiting with a SEAL Team 6 guy.
Which one?
DJ Shipley.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on the back of the chutes with me at a bull ride. And he made an observation. He said, every time you guys nod, you're met with a fight. When we go into a room, most of the time, it's empty.
Mm-hmm.
It's benign. There's nobody in there. 95% of the time, when they're clearing a house, it's empty.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no fight. But you still have to overcome that. And he was essentially patting us on the back that every time we're met with a fight.
Mm-hmm.
But, I always think about that moment because he goes into a room and now this person's trying to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And so his emotions are, I need to back up. I need to turn away, whatever. Well, that's counterintuitive to what the fundamentals are because he could get killed.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got to overcome those emotions, execute the fundamentals so that he stays safe and his team stays safe. And, for a SEAL Team 6 guy, he's operating at the highest level. That means that he can do that. And I can only speculate, I can only imagine what that rush is like when you do execute those fundamentals in those moments.
Your legs go numb. That's what it's like.
I just can't imagine but I know what it's like for me in the buck and shoot.
Right.
And the gate opens and I'm able to ignore the fact that this is extremely dangerous. And then it's not till after you are walking out of the arena that you realize like, oh, that was dangerous because you're just so focused on what you need to do to perform.
Does part of you disassociate at all?
How do you mean?
When you're in that, like when you're adrenaline, like when you stack on a house, your adrenaline spikes, right? So it's no different than sitting in a chute. When you're stacking on a house and you're waiting for the guy to say all clear and you're waiting for your breacher to tap you, that adrenaline kicks in and that whole thing starts to happen where the part of you just gets the tunnel vision that your heart rate spikes, everything's there, you're in that moment. And there's a bit of not a full disassociation, but I don't think there's a realization of really what you're fully doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're in your body to the best extent you can be. But do you ever find that with you when you sit on an animal?
Yeah. So I think that when you first start to ride, like you're trying to get to the spot where you don't think about the emotions, you're not distracted, there's not, and once you get to the rodeo, there's even more on the line. You've got money on the line. There's a deadline to it. So now it's your turn and I need you to nod in the next 15 seconds.
Oh, so there's like a quick turn.
Because we're putting on a show.
Right.
The crowd doesn't want to see you get ready. They want to see you perform.
Okay.
It needs to be quick. And so in the practice pen, when there's nobody watching, there's no pressure, we try to recreate it, but essentially in the practice pen, you can take your time.
Okay.
Well, at the rodeo, like it's boom, 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 and you have to be ready when it's your turn. And that adds to it. There's money on the line. Maybe you drew the one not to have, that distracts you, or you drew the one to have, and it's added pressure, like I hope I perform. And the more you put yourself in those situations, the better you get at it. And so guys will go to these smaller rodeos and then the bigger rodeos, and the thing that will delineate who makes a career out of it and makes the most money from the guys who are a flash in the pan will be how consistent you can be at taking your mind to the fight and going to that place you just described. So the SEAL Team 6 guys of rodeo
Mhm.
would be the guys that are able to go there mentally, 29 times out of 30. And they execute their fundamentals and they ride every time. And yeah, they disassociate themselves with the dangers,
Mhm.
with the drama and the emotions and the pressure. And every bull, every bronc are the same. And when you're able to do that, that's when you're going to start making money. There's still, I guess, kind of similar to how there's still risks, like with the your SEAL Team 6 guys. You can do everything right, and then a bullet just happened to fly in the wrong direction. Kind of the same scenario with rodeo. The stakes are much lower, but you can do everything right, and he just happens to step on your ankle or leg or collarbone in the wrong way.
Mhm.
You can make a good ride, and it's still dangerous.
Just getting caught, getting your foot or
Correct.
your hand or something along those lines?
We've got a young man out in the warehouse who made a good ride, got off on the pickup man, and he went all the way over just like he's supposed to and went to land on his feet, and it just buckled and broke his leg. He had to have surgery.
Ugh,
Had nothing to do with the actual ride itself.
right.
And so there's always those dangers attached to it. Coming back from those are difficult.
Mhm.
And the younger you are, the less you think about it.
Right.
So that plays a role. The less injuries you've had, the less you'll think about it.
Right.
So you get to be a little bit older. You've sat on an operating table 3, 4, 5, 10 times. And, that's when it's, you're literally aching when you nod your head. Like
Yeah.
those are moments that you got to learn to disassociate.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you is, excuse me, some of the individuals that we talked to are like, my husband was a professional athlete. He was a supercross racer. So it's like the constant injury. And when you start, when you're so young, similar to the way you guys start. So I guess I'm curious because it does feel like in the motocross, supercross world, if you're fast and you're consistent and you don't get hurt, that's the key. Because the time off the bike is one of the biggest issues, right? From like continuing that climb while everyone else that's with you is also climbing.
Mm-hmm.
I give you the example, like Villapoto is my husband's, that was their kind of age group that they rode together with generation-wise. And it was like him and Ryan grew up together. They rode together. Brady broke a femur. Ryan didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They would go together again. Brady broke another femur.
Mhm.
Ryan didn't. And it's like this continuous climb with injury that happens. So for you started riding quite young. How have you dealt with that? I mean, there had to be injury along the way and head injury at that.
I had this crazy hedge of protection around me for several years
Okay.
that I just did not experience as many. Like I remember one year I had gone somewhere every weekend, most of them multiple times a weekend for like a year.
Oh, wow.
And just went and went and went. No serious injuries at all. And it came to kind of an abrupt halt with breaking my collarbone and then re-breaking it. And but then I healed up from that and had another stretch of a few years of just no injury. And then just the year I turned 30, it started snowballing. And maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's because I turned 30. I don't know. But regardless, I had a stretch where it was, I tried not to take it for granted. I definitely wasn't arrogant about it, but I did recognize, just like I said, I think I believe to my core, it was just a hedge of protection around me as I was rodeoing, like just putting yourself in dangerous situations just daily, but to your point, that is, you see a lot of guys with our sport, much like motocross, I'm sure it's not if, it's when you get hurt.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of ways to eliminate that risk. For instance, shoot procedure. Being in the chute is a place where guys can get hurt. And so I think I've always had a really safe shoot procedure. So for the most part, that was a place that I didn't need to worry about. Your dismount, you're not going to, very rarely do you get hurt during the ride.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
Because it looks like you're just.
Yeah, it might look rough, but like you're not, rarely do you break something on the back of the animal.
Okay.
It's happened to me. It's happened, I can think of a few, but most of the time If it's not in the chute, it happens somewhere around the dismount. You either got bucked off or like my buddy that broke his leg. And so there's ways to mitigate that risk. If you're getting bucked off a horse because of the way the stirrup and your foot is shaped, if you'll roll to your belly, and this is when your foot is in any stirrup, much less in the saddle bronc ride. And if you roll to your belly the way your foot shape, it'll turn over and it usually rolls out and you don't get drugged.
Okay.
And so there's some fundamentals like that that'll help mitigate that risk, but there's still risk. And guys do experience injury. Kai Hamilton just won the world, then got hurt and had to have surgery, and he's just now coming back 6 months. So he's got half a year to mount up his return to make the NFR again. And unfortunately, that's part of because the timed event guys have all types of criticisms towards the rough stock guys, like, that we don't have to, we can jump in a car and go, we don't have to haul a horse. And the PRCA offers insurance that when you buy your card each year, part of that goes towards the insurance that everybody uses. And Tommies argue that roughies are the ones using the insurance. Well, right, but there's not many Tommies that are out for 6 months because of just this run-of-the-mill, calf roping. You know what I mean? Like, yes, they do get hurt, but not near to the extent that roughies do. So, anyhow, that is 100% part of the game, is dealing with injuries.
And when you're dealing with injuries like that, so I think I heard that you've done shoulders, like collarbone. So did they plate your collarbone, or did you let that heal naturally?
I tried to let it heal naturally the first couple of times I broke it, and it just, he called it a non-union the last time. Like, it wasn't even I was fully functional trying to use it, but the bones weren't even connected.
Okay.
Like, it was all calcium holding my collarbone in place.
Yeah.
It was kind of bendy.
Yeah. It's got the flex.
So he had to scrape all that off. And then my shoulder, I dislocated it 5 times before we finally just had surgery. And
was that from just is that your right arm? Is that the one you hold on to with?
Yes, the holding on to wasn't what hurt it. It's just the way I landed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like hit the ground and drive your elbow up and
then just
pop it out the front.
One of those.
Yep.
And that becomes an issue, right? Continuously. Like, shoulders are not like hips or knees. Like, they're very different in that it'll just keep getting looser and looser and looser. No?
It's not as big a socket as your hip.
Right.
And so, yes. And that's every time it would come out, like, it would just chip off bone. So essentially, whenever he fixed it, I want to say he took off wherever my bicep was connected to, he grafted that piece of bone and moved it to rebuild my
So it was
socket.
tight enough again.
So my bicep moved with it. So like, anyway, I didn't understand it, but
no, fair enough. I just find those injuries interesting when you come back from them, because your stuff is very much mindset based, and that's what I focus with a lot of athletes, right? Is mindset stuff and this continual idea of like putting yourself in situations that the normal people can't, just because their bodies, that fight, flight, or freeze situation that will happen. So is that something, because you're pro for very, very, very long time. So did you ever work on that? Or is that just coming from the style of rodeo of just being constantly on the ranch and the family and just, this is what you do?
I think there's elements of both, like I heard that same friend of mine that carries 3 guns is, he used to say rodeo is 90% mental and the rest is in your head. And I'd say that to people that aren't overweight, because for rough stock, you gotta be able to handle. If you can't do a chin up, then you might have a hard time. Right. You got to be able to handle your own body weight. So once you're to that point, it is 90% mental and the rest is in your head. Like those fundamentals, are what will ride that bronc. So it's just being able to execute them. Okay. And you're not going to overpower an animal, is what I'm getting at. Mm-hmm. Like it's a fundamental that can be implemented if you do them right. Technically, you should be able to ride any bronc, any bull on the planet if you execute them properly. Easier said than done, but what I'm getting at is it's all mental.
It's all mental. I mean, it would make sense.
So guys are now, again, maybe similar to motocross, but you're self-employed as a rodeo cowboy. So some guys figure it out. Some guys just kind of beat their head against the wall and just go and get on, and they're addicted to the brief moments of success that they had and chasing that gold buckle. And so, but the ones that make it to the top are the ones that figure out that mental side of it that you're talking about. And you do not have to be an intelligent person to figure it out.
Well, and I think that's the conversation point with a lot of people is they think that they have to be these, they either have to be these very woo-woo type, like spiritual, very calm, very relaxed people to be able to stay in that state, or they have to be these hyper-intelligent where they understand, listen to a Huberman podcast on like times 2 to be able to understand the mental side of things. But I think it's, like you said, it's fundamentals on the animal, but it's fundamentals with breath. It's fundamentals with the tools in our toolbox that we actually do have. And it's understanding that it doesn't matter what you do, there's going to be a risk, whether that's stepping out to go for a walk on the street, you can get hit by a bus, or if you live in California, you can just get stabbed everywhere you go, or you can go and get on a bull and you're going to run into the same sort of issues, but you actually might have more predictable behavior because if you are a bull rider, you're obviously going to understand how they're going to move. So I know that the way it seems to work, and I just remembered how I found out about you. It had nothing to do with any of our military friends. It had to do actually with Chris. He was a photographer for the PBR, and I had him on the show, but he's since passed away. But he was a photographer, and we were chatting about the PBR a little bit and how that all worked. And I just find it fascinating because it's such a out of the box type job. Like if you weren't growing up in it, I don't know how you get exposed to it. I don't know how you would try it. I don't know how people who would want to, other than intern with you, how they would go about even starting that journey.
So there's a lot there that had my wheels turning. The best way, I think, is to find someone like me.
Okay.
The easiest way to get started is to go to a school.
They have schools for this.
Yeah, like kind of like a basketball camp,
Okay.
a 2 or a 3 day deal.
Oh, wow.
And you go to a school and they'll teach you the fundamentals and you'll get on. The most you would hear of somebody getting on at a school is maybe 10 head. If you're physically
Okay.
up for it, like you might get on 10 bucking bulls.
Okay.
12, 14. But for your first one, probably more like 5.
Mm.
And the first afternoon, you're going to work on fundamentals, getting your gear set up, and get on 5, 6 bulls over the course of 3 days. But it's a crash course. And it's very quick. How much you're going to really remember? Are the animals suited to your riding ability, or are they just what they had available? And so those are all questions that are really important for the longevity of someone's career. And if you're wanting to get started, what you need is a place to practice with the kind of stock that is going to match your ability and allow you to grow, and then some time in between each practice where you can go back and work on the fundamentals, because riding bulls, riding broncs is so dangerous that especially your first 20, 30 head, like you need to go back and work on those fundamentals. Otherwise, if you just get back on the horse without working on anything, like that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. Because to your point about the mental side of the game, I would say what's most important is unwavering belief. Like that's what those winners are going to have. Like they believe that they can ride any bull in the pen. They believe that they can ride any bronc, and it doesn't matter if they're coming off of a buck off, they're able to get back to that spot of just pure confidence. And the only way to build that confidence is to win. And so if you're starting out, you have to create a win for yourself because you've never been on, or your first 5 you bucked off. So how do you build that confidence? Well, it's going to come from preparation outside of the arena. So you can get on the bucking machine, you can get on, a spur board, you can get on a drop barrel. They simulate bull riding.
Okay.
And you need to remember they're nothing more than a simulation. So you can't get too overly confident on them. Otherwise, you're going to disrespect the bull, and he's going to put you in your place, and it's going to mess with that belief. And so, for somebody to get started, I think they find somewhere where they're able to get on consistently. That's the best case scenario. But the fastest one is to look up my friend Lyle Sankey.
Okay.
And I'll make zero money off of it, but Sankey Rodeo Schools, Sankey. He went to the NFR in all 3 rough stock events, Bears, Broncs, and Bulls, and he puts on these 3-day clinics across the country. He does maybe 20 a year.
Wow.
And they're great places. He tries to get the best stock available that he can, but again, I think he would even also agree with me that after you maybe go dip your toe in at a school and see if it's something you want to explore, then you need to find somewhere where you can get immersed in the culture.
You need seat time.
Yes.
You need reps.
There's nothing will replace actually getting on bulls. Mm-hmm. So you can get on the drop barrel and you can do those things to build confidence. You can spend time in the gym.
Right.
But nothing will replace, because I was talking to a buddy last night. He's never really ridden horses or anything. He wants to get on a bull, and I told him I'd help him. And he's just like, it looks so easy. I think I'll be good at it.
Who says that?
It's like, Dave, my man. And we're all laughing, all the guys in the room that have been on before are just really grinning ear to ear at, because that's what people think, but it's just not the case.
Well, there's levels to bulls too, right?
For sure.
Okay, so can you walk me through?
Absolutely.
Okay, walk me through that. And same with horses, right? Broncos.
Yes.
Yeah, they have different levels of kick.
The horses are much harder to level down because even like a weaker type bucking horse, they're still tall.
Okay.
And most of the weaker ones means they're really just running more than bucking.
Okay.
So now you're higher off the ground and you're still moving fast. And so imagine, get a pickup. You can go through a school zone, but you're in the back of a pickup going school zone speed.
Right.
Stand on the side of the bed and then just jump on the ground.
Oh,
and that would be getting bucked off of a horse. So you're going to want to roll, that way you don't just hit. But with bull riding, they're shorter.
Okay.
And they can be slower. You can find a herd bull. We can go to the sale barn and buy 10 bulls, and 2, 3, 4 of them will be perfect practice bulls for somebody's first time.
Do they just not kick? They're not
they
buck
might
at
kick
all?
a little bit,
Okay.
but they're just going to be so we just put Caleb Francis on a bull. And if you watch when his video comes out,
Yeah.
and I can show you videos of that bull, but he's just the perfect beginner.
Yeah.
Still some risks associated with it, but they are way turned down. Way turned down.
And then, so how does that work when you guys go into a situation where you're competing? Do you get the decision to pick a bull? Do you guys put
they're drawn
names in a hat?
at random?
Okay.
There's certain situations where you do get to pick, but those are, some bigger moments at bigger rodeos.
Okay.
But day in and day out, you are drawn a random bull at that event.
Jesus, no thanks.
So
the risk is just so high.
At the bigger, more professional rodeos, you'll know a few days in advance
Oh, really?
what you're going to get on, and so you could call around about him. But if it's a smaller rodeo, they don't know if you're going to show up, so they don't want to designate you a bull, and then you don't show up, and that bull's out of now. They can't buck that bull, so they'll do an hour before at a smaller rodeo.
And so when you ask around, are you talking about the same type of thing where you're playing a different team, where you're watching tape to see how this animal moves? It's kind of predictability.
No, because this would be you call that team.
Oh, wow.
It's a unique situation. I was one of my traveling partners was talking. He did not come from rodeo, and he got into it in college, and then his dad came with him. Zero type of connection to this industry, his dad.
Okay.
Well, make a long story short, when you're getting on bucking horses and you have that bronc rein, you hold on to one rein.
Right.
Horses will hold their heads in different spots.
Right.
And so you'll measure where you grab that rein. Because one horse may buck with his head up, and so you want a shorter rein.
Right.
One horse may buck with his head down, so you want a longer rein. And different horses take different reins. If you get those two mixed up, that could buck you off.
Right.
So if, Donnie here, for instance, has been on this horse that I'm about to get on, he got on him last week. I would ask Donnie, hey, what do you go for rein? Even if he's at the same rodeo, I would go over and ask Donnie. And my buddy's dad was like, you're going to trust what he tells you? Why would he not just tell you something different?
Right.
And it was just like, no, that's not how it works. Like, it's me against the animal. Sure, I might win his money, but nobody in their right mind. Like, I've heard stories of maybe one guy telling the wrong rein on purpose.
Really?
But just week in and week out, that just, if you and I are competing against each other at the same rodeo and you ask me, hey, what do I give this paint horse Bob Ross? I'd say X and 2. Like, that is my best knowledge. Like, you could go average, but I would go X and 2 because last trip, like, I'm going to try to help you.
Right. So there's
Even though we're
reciprocity.
even though we're competing against each other. And that sort of camaraderie in rodeo is unique because it just doesn't exist in other sports. Like, we might even travel together.
Right.
Like, I might have had to help you pay your fees tonight. And that happens throughout the entire industry. And it's because I think it's part of it is the nature of it's that at the end of the day, it's me against my horse, and let the chips fall where they may after that. But I want to do the best I can against this bucking bull.
But there's a respect within the community, though, it sounds like.
100%. And if you don't have it, then you'll get weeded out.
Wouldn't take long, I would assume.
It's not going to be fun for you. You better be a lone wolf that enjoys being by yourself, because if you don't have that sense of camaraderie where you can at least respect your fellow competitors, then you're probably not going to be welcome back.
Well, it seems like it's more of a team aspect. Like, even though you're individuals, right, you're still in this kind of all together. You're all doing this. You're all riding similar animals. You're all working together. And I guess if you're putting on a show, you want to put on a good show. You don't want to have any sort of controversy. So that would make sense.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, we're not all I mean, like, there are guys that don't get along with other guys. I'm not saying that, but just the element of competition is way different than your normal team sports.
Right.
And that it makes it fun.
Well, it's no different than the service. Everyone's on the same team until you're not in the service anymore.
Right.
It's just
Yeah,
that's
that's a similarity.
It's all A type, and then when you break apart, it's there's a community of it. So do you find that to be one of the more supportive side of things, is there's a solid community?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's days that you don't want to be there. There's good days in racing and there's bad days in racing, and Ricky Bobby just had it. Anyway, same thing with rodeo, there's days where, and the fact that, you're going to a rodeo with a certain traveling partner, and, you guys are going to encourage each other, lift each other up. Or when you get there, maybe you're traveling by yourself and but then once you get there, you smell that fresh arena dirt and you see that old buddy, and you look at the broncs and you start saddling your horse and everything turns around.
It's the environment.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a ride that's been particularly difficult to come back from?
I mean, the one that started my first surgery several years ago, like, it was a turning point for me where, like, I described it to somebody the other day that I felt like God was just hitting pause on my rodeo career. Maybe he's hitting the stop button and I'm choosing to see it as a pause button. But I was in Austin and I made a good ride, but before it started, the horse mashed me and kind of crunched my back. And anyway, it wasn't like any sort of like life-threatening back injury at all, but it was enough to affect my riding. And it was the beginning of that pause button being hit, and it resulted in me having a surgery a few months later, and that one didn't work. I'd have another surgery and then came back from that and got hurt again and two more. Anyway, so yeah, Austin semifinals probably 6 years ago was probably a turning point. Horse named Red Wings.
I don't think you'll ever forget that, huh?
No, I won't. My buddies didn't either. They got on that horse afterwards.
Oh, really?
And they're like, hey, I need two people on the neck rope.
So how does that work psychologically for you? What do you do? Because I know you're a man of faith, and I know that you do have a lot of belief.
Well, I've been super blessed because, I was hurt and I had these surgeries and they were things that took me out of the arena for a time, but I was still, nobody knew it because I'm not talking about it in videos or anything. I made some content in the hospital a couple times because it's funny, I think, to videotape being drugged up. But
Yeah.
outside of that, nobody knew it. And so I was able to continue making YouTube videos and continue, with my apparel line. And so that side of the business has continued to grow. And it's almost like I said, like I felt like God was like, hey, I've got this other plan for you outside of the arena. And so I'm going to hit pause on this because he knew that I wasn't going to slow down. Like I was too addicted to being in the arena that, I was going to beat my head against that wall for as long as I could. And that's the way I see it and have felt it, was that like this was a divine plan that the Lord had for me. But he also, knew me well enough that I wasn't going to just voluntarily step out of it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like you're
or
that
step
guy.
into this one, step out of that one to step into this
Right.
one.
So just giving you focus and giving you an opportunity to be able to have time to focus on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been grateful that these injuries have been minor,
Right.
and then also skeptical of like what I need to do next, and I do legitimately think that it was pause buttons. And now there's so much on the line now, there's employees and families that depend on me. And so I often wonder what rodeos look like for me in the future, because, I'm not going to leave this crew and they're just going to be twiddling their thumbs while I go chase this selfish dream.
Right.
Rodeo is pretty, the dream of chasing a gold buckle is kind of selfish at its core, like it's hard for a family to go with you. It's best for a single guy, or as I tell some of these 21, 22-year-olds to come in here, it's just like, before you get married, you better be at least making money doing this, because that's when the pressure will really happen, whenever she sees you leave to go lose money, and you're also leaving to go to a party, because all these rodeos are that town's party for the year. You know what I mean? Like they are celebrating, and you are now going to, so if you're going to a rodeo Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, like you're going to 3 parties that weekend. And so if you're not making money and going to a party, like how sustainable is that for any young lady at the house? Some young wife that like, she's looking at the books like, hey, this ain't ROI positive.
Well, and also if you've got
I'm
children,
by myself.
Well,
The kids too.
The
Like,
kids.
There's hey Cole, will you just double check that audio that we're still good? Yeah, you add kids in the mix and it's a whole nother game.
Well, then also they want to do what daddy wants to do.
They want to do that. And then, hopefully you would even have a job, because if you're not making money rodeoing, then you got a job.
Right.
Hopefully that job is one that is okay with you coming in with a bum leg one day.
Right. You don't want to be
There's
working
so
construction.
much, if that's one of the reasons it's a young man's sport.
Right.
And you got to sacrifice a lot if you want to keep going.
Is it worth the sacrifice?
I heard an old man, 2 old men talking like when I was young, and it's like one of them asked like, do you miss it? And the other one said, if you don't miss it, you never loved it. And I don't know, I think about my dad and shaking his hand the night before I went to a rodeo and he went to a rodeo, and yeah, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, well, that's really beautiful, man, because that's a connection to something deeper, though.
It's hard, if I think if you're, asking if it's worth it or not would be, it depends on how you look at success. And if you look at success through the lens of money, my old man died with $800 in his account. And so a lot of people would say that he wasn't successful. I've got a granddad that was an entrepreneur, and, he thought rodeoing was silly, and it was on my mom's side of the family, and he passed away. I don't know how much he had in his account, my grandmother, but I think, to be honest, I think it went to the church, but regardless, great man. I love my granddad, but if I had to pick which one to be, 1,000 out of 1,000, I would pick my dad. You know, with that $800 split 4 ways. You know, like that's a no brainer for me. But that would take, again, you don't look through the lens through success through the lens of money, and it's hard not to these days.
Well, well, if it wasn't the main factor that determines where you are in almost anything, it would make sense to not look at it. But it's unfortunately kind of where we're at. Like whether that's in podcasting, whether that's in riding, doing professional sports, like isn't the dollar is how you
even rodeo.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
That's how they keep track of who's going to the NFR at the end of the year. It's the top 15 money earners. And one of my buddies, Jacobs, was talking about his brother Sterling and said that the only reason he cares about money is because that's how they keep track of who's winning.
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't for, if they used a point system, you know, money would even be less important to him because that's how much he cares about just rodeo and bronc riding. And now he's got a family of his own, and he's a little, minding his P's and Q's, but just talking about the early days of him going down the road. And it was just a unique observation that made me stop and think and correlate the two. But you're right, like it's hard not to consider it. And it's hard not to get in just the daily grind of, the rat race, I guess, of trying to get ahead.
How much of riding for you was something you loved, and how much of it was you wanting to have your father be proud of you? Uncomfortable question.
No, it's not uncomfortable.
Okay.
Are you laughing? Shut up, Cole. He knows what's coming, but I don't know. My dad never said the words, "I'm proud of you." And he told me that. He said that, in James, it says, God opposes the proud and gives grace to the humble. Mm-hmm. And I look back and C.S. Lewis, I never heard anybody else address that. Like nobody would ever say that I've never heard another parent talk like that. But C.S. Lewis later talks about it in Mere Christianity, and he says that what some people do mean pride for their child in a sinful manner, but what sometimes people might mean is they have a warm-hearted admiration for their child. Mm. And just the English language has kind of pushed the word proud of into. So I'm not trying to throw rocks at the way you asked the question at all, but essentially, like my dad, but even getting into the question even deeper, I never felt a need to try to accomplish something for my dad to have that warm-hearted admiration for me.
It was already just there. You felt it.
It was there. Yeah. Like no matter what we did as kids. And I felt that to my core. He supported us, and my brother wrote a song. It's called If I Don't Call. And he and a buddy of his, John Stork, wrote it. And they played at rodeos. And like one of the most chill bumps I've ever had is me being entered in a rodeo and walking across the arena and just the few minutes before they'll play those last 2 or 3 songs, and whether the sound man saw me walking or whatever, but whenever his song comes on, If I Don't Call, and I'm at a rodeo, and I'm liable to start crying when I'm there, but thinking about my dad. But essentially what that call was, it's like when you leave a rodeo, we'd call home, and my dad could tell how we did by the sound of our voice. Of
course.
Or if we didn't call. And it says in the lyrics, no news is good news, like maybe I bucked off, and if I don't call, don't worry, And he had 2 versions of the song. The acoustic version was like, if I don't call, don't worry, I'm okay. It doesn't say I bucked off, but the acoustic version to me touched that side of my career. But then when he played it for the radio version, it was way more upbeat. And it's like, if I don't call, don't worry, I'm winning.
Oh, it's like that. It's got the different vibes.
But anyway, regardless, that song for me and my brother was this connection back to my dad and how he supported us no matter what we did. And so for me, it's a really easy answer when you ask why I was doing that. I was doing that for me. And I never felt the need to try to make my dad feel any certain way, because I knew no matter what. And I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Gladiator, but when I was a kid, my dad would say strength and honor. And when he died, the two more appropriate words would be faith and loyalty. You know, I think he was known best for his faith in the circles of my family, and then also just his loyalty to really anybody that, I don't know, if he was in your corner, he was in your corner. Yeah. Like he was, you know, not that he was some big bad dude, but he would be willing to, I truly think my dad was going to be willing to like give his life for someone that, like, if he shared that bond with you, then like that meant like he was in your corner, even if it meant we're going to die together. And that's just what I felt from him, right. You know? And so anyhow, that was, but yeah, that touches on a couple different things, like how I feel about my dad and how I feel about the word and the feeling pride. But
so June is a good month for you then, yeah?
Yeah, shit. Yeah.
Sorry, that Hawk Tua girl really sidelined Pride this month. Sorry, I'm here for her.
Again, I do think pride is a sin. So yeah,
it's all right. You're on my show. You can say whatever the hell you want, my friend.
I appreciate it.
No, well, most of my listeners are from America, so I know they're gonna appreciate it anyway. Yeah. But you live an interesting life. So what else do you do that you love? I know you said you're carnivore. We were talking about the carnivore cookies over there that are clearly all meat.
Yeah.
All meat cookies that Caleb made. So talk to me about things that you enjoy doing that aren't throwing yourself on the back of an animal. What fills your soul? What fills your cup?
Really what we've done these last 3 days with Caleb here. So, you know, I love the content game, and my cup is full whenever I am, you know, outside of when rodeo was what was mainly the main thing that filled my cup. You know, lately it's been, making people laugh. I've always loved to make people laugh. And we made probably 10 little short skits while he was here. And then we did a vlog, and we also did a podcast, and just having those skits in my phone ready to deploy. And then also like just whether they do good or not, like it was sincerely good for my soul to make the video. Yeah. And coincidentally, I think I've kind of got the game down where I can make stuff that's good for my soul, and it will also perform well, satiate my sponsors, maybe move a little bit of apparel. That way we can keep playing the game. But it started for fun, and we're still doing it for fun. Now we just happen to also make money.
I love that.
So
you're doing stuff that makes money, but it's really what your heart, and plus it's easy to do with Caleb because he's just got that. Well, he's Caleb, so he's got the vibe. That yeehaw one, I nearly peed myself.
Yes, that was the first one. You heading out, Caleb?
No, it's all right. Fine, honey. Come on in.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome. Come give me a hug, big man.
Awesome to see you. Yeah, forever. When you said you were coming, I was like, what? I was like, awesome.
Coming down from communism just to visit.
Yeah, see you, man. Dude, super cute. Dude, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man.
Caleb, you gotta come up to Vancouver,
sweetheart. We'll do this again. Yeah,
my boobs away there. Sorry about that.
Do what?
Oh, she just almost had a titty moment there.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. No,
it happens with Caleb a lot.
He's so handsy.
He's so handsy, but he's
with me too.
He's a funny guy. I got to tell you, the first time I met him, I had him on the show and I didn't know what I was going to get. And then we end up linking up like a week later in Texas. He's just a human teddy bear.
Yeah. No, he is. And I love having, so Caleb was here this week. Last week, it was a stand-up comedian. His name's Dean Stanfield.
Okay.
Down in Austin area. Mm-hmm. And so those are, whenever we're making content, and the work side of me feels fulfilled because, you know, like I said, I've got a dozen videos ready to, but then just my soul is like, I just really enjoy comedy, and I enjoy making people laugh.
Is it me, or do you find comedy heals?
Oh man, it's such a pleasant distraction. from anything and that's one of the reasons that I haven't. I mean, I think it should be pretty apparent where I lie on a lot of things politically, but I usually I'll make jokes towards it sometimes and occasionally make a serious post about it, but there's so many voices out there that are able to be more educated, and I see that people come to me for a break from that.
Yeah.
And so I usually steer away from it out of necessity.
I mean, it makes sense. If it's not your wheelhouse, or it's not an area you're trying to go, or it's not where you're trying to expand into. Like, it's one thing if you're on a podcast, somebody asks you a question about what do you think of this guy, or what do you think of this guy, and what's going on with this bill. That's a different thing. You're not actively pushing content around like Trump this and Biden this.
Exactly.
Although I did make a really good Biden joke getting off the jet yesterday, coming down with my cane. So I'm not gonna lie, that's gonna be a good one coming out. But I can do that. I'm Canadian. I'm devoid of your responsibility.
And that's the same way I felt with I guess my ministry, early on, because I would always be the guy behind the shoots that I'll gather everybody around to say a prayer, and there's a lot about getting on a bull that'll make you think about needing to visit with your maker. So like, roughies are really good about having a little we'll crack a Bible and even share a little word before we get on, and so when I started making content and I started seeing that people were watching it, I kind of felt a little bit of a need that like maybe I needed to have every other post be a sermon, and my accountability partner was like, no, I think it's okay that you respect where God put you. And that's almost like a rodeo clown on the internet, and that didn't mean that now I can be a Christian who's a comedian, and that's fine, and maybe there will come a time in my life where I am called to be a pastor, but that I don't feel that that's right now. And so essentially I'm just trying to be the comedian cowboy that God made me. And same thing with politics,
right?
So
well, comedy heals. I mean, that's when we're overseas, we listen to comedy CDs, like when CDs were a thing. Did I just date myself aggressively?
Right.
Yeah, comedy CDs. You get like the rip off offline from like the sketchy guy at like the Fob, and then they would give you the disc and hope there's nothing weird in it.
Yep.
And then you would just listen to stuff that would make you laugh, and then you would crack on.
Right.
But it's like comedy. That's one of the reasons I'm pivoting the show, and the reason why you're the first guest on the revamp of what we're doing. The show's
what's it called?
It's called the Kelsi Sheren Perspective.
Gotcha.
So it's been Brass and Unity for 4 years.
Yep.
And it's always been this state of where I interview, whether it's professional athletes or SEAL Team 6 guys or Rangers or whatever, or the community or nonprofits or mental health. It's always been this kind of compilation of things. And I finally sat down and I'm like, I know what this is. It's a place to hold space, to have the hard conversation, but that can also come with like comedy, and that can come with levity. And it doesn't always have to be these serious, tell me the worst thing that ever happened to you situations, because comedy not only heals, but it gives people a space to laugh at things that maybe they couldn't normally laugh at. In a town, normally they would be with the weird guy if they laughed at that, or they wanted to hear that person play. And it heals souls. And, and I think it saves souls too.
Yep.
One of the, I sat across from Jordan Peterson about a month ago, and we were sitting right before we started recording, and, we're both from Canada. Him and I both go through, he was the first guy in the door in terms of the censorship. And then because of the pathway he put forward, we could all kind of walk through that door. So we're having this conversation, and he looks at me and goes, who do you want to talk to next, and why? And I thought to myself, but of anybody I could have said in all of podcasting, whether it's comedy, whether it's, any major celebrity, I went, I think Theo.
Yeah.
Because there's a depth to comedy that only comes from lived experience that is either really extreme, really intense, really violent, like really like that trauma filled, or like you just had a really good childhood and somehow you were able to use like the delusion of the perfect like white picket fence to make fun of. And I think it is a community builder. And that to me is where my focus is. It's like, this is a community builder. When people can have hard conversations, you're holding a space, much like church for some people. But if you're not religious and people don't want to go to those environments, it's like, well, how do you make people feel a part of something greater? It's like, well, have a hard conversation or open the door to a conversation, especially with comedy. It's just so much easier to kind of dive into that. And that was one of the things that drew me to you when after I talked to Dallas, he goes, he's funnier than you'll think. So it really goes, yeah, he's a funny dude. Like you won't, he's funnier than you think. Cause like you're unassuming though online. If you don't really know who you are and you don't listen to the funny stuff, like you're this cowboy. You're a guy from Texas who's a cowboy who wears the glass. Like you're a mix of like Tim Dillon and who's another good example who wears a cowboy hat? Got to come up with one. But you've got the Tim Dillon in you where it's like, I'm gonna say the thing. But I also come from like the space of like, family, loyalty, faith, and like you have a different vibe to you. So if you don't know the comedy side of you, you're a Texas guy. Like you're ma'am, yes ma'am. Like everybody in this room, except for that lovely lady, but it's valid because she has a vagina, took their hat off and shook my hand. I cannot tell you when I've been in a room and that's ever happened in all of my existence. There's something about the culture around what you do and how you mix it with comedy that I find that heals in a different way because you appeal to people who are maybe, and like, I'm not saying you were, but I'm saying, because I find this in the South a lot, and I find this with men in the South a lot, especially because I served with a lot of the guys. It's like, boys don't cry.
Yeah.
Boys don't cry. And when you said, if I hear that song, like, I might cry.
Yeah.
Like, there's no shame in that, though. So I want to understand, like, were you told the traditional, like, men don't cry, we feel our feeling, like, or were you told, like, no, you feel your stuff?
I mean, I wasn't told not to cry.
Right.
But my dad didn't until he did,
right.
but yeah, which would be the little moments of trauma. But regardless, he didn't. Yeah, he was kind of a John Wayne type. Very much so.
Stoic.
Yeah, I think the comedy side of what I bring to the table, I know comes from my mom. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, my dad was more, and she lives just 10 miles from here, and she actually does the embroidery on all our caps and puts our patches on, so we get to work close together. But my dad, he was more of like a typical kind of cowboy figure that you would picture in Texas, so but like I said, he too was, I say John Wayne, but also like a touch of Billy Graham, like, and maybe I just say that because he's Christian and a little older, but so yeah, he was a man of God and usually very serious cowboy, and so there was that feeling of we didn't cry a lot
unless it like hurt or the bone was protruding, then that was acceptable.
Whenever I was a kid, I fell off my first. I can't remember what it was. Like, I'm not even gonna. It was after the whistle, probably, but yeah, hit the ground on a steer, and he had a very serious conversation with me. I remember about the difference in injuries and pain, and that we were not supposed to. So yeah, there was a moment when he's like, "If it's pain, then you do not need to be crying."
Okay.
Like if a bone is protruding, I'll allow a little.
One single
tear. Yeah,
tear.
I'll allow a little, but it was this moment of like, you do not complain about pain.
Seems like he gave you a really strong set of values. Like I've heard you speak before, but you seem to hold your father in a very high regard.
I try not to hold him higher than he was.
Okay.
My mom said once that hindsight's not always 20/20, and we try to remember things better than maybe they were. And I really do my best to not do that with my dad, because it's easy for people that didn't know him or it would be hard for them to argue.
Right.
And so I try not to just like create these things just because people didn't know who he was. But I don't know, the more that because he did have, flaws, and there were moments where he was annoying, like if he were around today with all my videos, he would have so many ideas, he'd be annoying. But looking at what's going on in the world today, it's just like, damn, I wish there was, a couple million of those in the country.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more.
You know what I mean? Like somebody that just like, this is truth, and I'm not going to stray away from it just because of tolerance.
And make you comfortable.
Yeah. I think the word tolerance gets abused, I don't know.
I couldn't agree more. The
first word in Matthew is repent, not tolerate. Tolerate is not like a Christian value.
Right.
And I'm not saying that we need to go fight people that disagree with us. That's not what Jesus did.
Right.
But I think that word gets people to where they think they need to take something too far. That was out of Matt Chandler's book, by the way.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to plagiarize him,
No.
but he's a pastor in the Dallas area. But
It's been co-opted though.
yeah,
Like it's been co-opted for sure by a specific style of ideology that wants you to adhere to a lifestyle or a way of life where the majority of us are just saying hard no.
yeah. I mean, it was essentially at first, it was just like it did mean. I think the way I took it was tolerance meant like, no, don't fight this person because they're different. And now it means like, you're not allowed to hurt my feelings.
Right. Words are violence.
And those are two different things.
Yeah. Yeah, the words of violence ones. Those are like the people I like to ask if they believe that truly wholeheartedly. And then those are the people you punch in the face and then ask them again, is that still is violence or is words violence?
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah.
We're trying to give you some perspective.
Exactly.
We're trying to give you some life experience.
Right.
There's a nice way to do it. Just a light tap.
Yeah.
It's no damage. It's fine. But you guys all carry guns, so you can't punch anybody around here. You all carry something. Guns, violence is a real thing in Texas. But I wanted just a couple more questions. If you could pick anything that you could do for the rest of your existence, would you change anything?
About like, yeah,
What?
right now, no.
No way.
I mean, I may have a couple more days off here and there, but I mean, yeah, no, I'm doing. Somebody asked me a while back, like, if you could map out your next 5 years, and I was like, it would look just like this.
Right.
Like I said, maybe yesterday, there was one point we were filming and it was about 100 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Like I would have like moved that film sesh to like a morning or an evening, but I'm still doing that, you
Right.
know, like maybe just at the hottest part of the, you know, right now we got to film today
Right.
in this moment to pay the bills. But if bills weren't a thing, then I'd still do it. Let's just wait till golden hour.
Right. Just give it a little bit on that heat. And last question. What's the thing you want to be remembered for the most on your time?
I would say my faith and then maybe hopefully my loyalty. The two things that I do remember about my old man. So
That's
yeah.
really beautiful, man.
I'd love to be remembered for the same things he was. So that's my goal at least.
That might be one of the most honest answers I've been given.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I'm glad that we were able to get down and chat and do this in person. It's always better in person than virtual. So
100%.
I'm always happy to come out. But can you, because I'd love to chat with you again another time. I don't want to pick your brain too hard, but can you let everyone know how they can support not only your comedy, but any of the programs you do and, you know, the community that you help?
Well, our main gig is, our apparel line. That's our main source of revenue, but I wouldn't necessarily ask somebody who doesn't know me to just go buy a shirt, but maybe go subscribe to the YouTube channel and watch the Instagram, TikTok videos. And if you like those, then maybe one day you become a customer. So
Maybe
yeah,
one
I would
day.
say just enjoy the videos. But yeah, rodeotime.com is my website. But my YouTube is really the foundation of our content. Like we'll put a vlog. Ideally, a vlog goes out on Tuesday, a podcast goes out on Thursday. And then shorts and TikToks and reels, you get all of our little skits and stuff. So
Yeah, you've got a great show, man.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, man.
So
Happy to.
you bet.
Anytime I get to come to Texas, I'm happy
And
to be here.
And you're coming on mine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
So we're going to do that after. So everybody else,
Perfect.
make sure to go to the bio, check everything out. We'll put everything in the show notes and we'll make sure that we get you guys some new subscribers. Thanks for coming
Awesome.
on, man.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I got that on camera. I might have to make that my new intro. Just yes, ma'am. And then we start the show. That's it.